Hello and welcome to Unprofessional Engineering. My name is James.
And you got Luke.
Luke, today we're blasting off into space, learning how to become an astronaut.
That was pretty cheesy. Just is this going to happen like the rest of the? You're going to have all kinds of rocket references and.
I mean, I just might.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Again, this is one of those ones I'm super surprised we've never done before because I think everybody, well, maybe not everybody, but I would bet most people probably wanted to be an astronaut at some point. Like, or you played an astronaut. You know, like I remember putting boxes on my head and like pretending it was a helmet and like cutting holes in them. And yeah.
Wow. Well, you certainly had what it took to become an astronaut, Luke.
We're going to get there.
Speaking of, let's talk about what it took to be an astronaut back in your time.
Back in the day. Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so this is a long time ago. The military selected the first astronauts in 1959. The first astronauts, man, I can't say that word, were military personnel, which makes sense. They had experience in flying jet aircrafts, which makes sense. And they also had backgrounds in engineering. All of this seems to add up to me. What was kind of interesting, making us both great candidates, Luke, is that they also had to be shorter than 5'11".
The one time being short can help you, and there's other reasons why I don't qualify, but like the one time we're looking for short people.
Yeah, I know. And it was before our time, sadly. But this was because the Mercury spacecraft was so itty bitty that they needed itty bitty people to fit in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was probably designed for, dogs and other animals that they sent into space. In addition to flight and engineering experience, though, space exploration requires lots of scientific knowledge, Luke. So in 1964, NASA began searching for scientists as well to become astronauts, which is great. Back then, one qualification for scientists/astronauts was a doctorate in medicine, engineering, or natural sciences, which would be like your biologies or your chemistries or physics, things like that. So really smart people like you and I. Now, today, things have changed a little bit.
There's quite a few basic requirements.
Basic. Do you want to get into those basic requirements?
So, yeah, right out of the gate, you got to be a U.S. citizen. They're not sending any, people who aren't, at least NASA. They're not sending, obviously
other countries don't care quite so much.
They can kind of do whatever they want to do. Yeah, we don't prevent other people from other countries going to space. So NASA will only send U.S. citizens. So you have to be a U.S. citizen. The second one is you got to possess a master's degree. There's a little asterisk there, so maybe I'm safe.
Yeah.
We'll see if you and I make it in with the 3 sub options if you don't have the master's.
I'm certain.
Preferably in a STEM field. So they're looking for engineers, biologists, physical science, computer science, math. So if you have a master's degree in like English, and you got something, cultural studies or, whatever it is. Yeah, you're not going to make it. You need to be in STEM, STEM, which.
Yeah, not the A, no STEAM.
Yeah, not the STEAM.
Once we find aliens, though, I bet those English majors are going to be useful.
Guaranteed. The second one they had listed, and this is on NASA's own website. The second one is you have to have at least 2 years of experience, which seems way low to me. So, like, you're an engineer and you've been working for 2 years? Like, are you kidding me? The next one is you need to be able to pass NASA's long-duration flight astronaut physical. I had a really hard time finding the details. I found a couple pieces we'll talk about later in the physical requirements section. So let's say you don't have that master's degree, James. You can still get in as an engineer, right? So you have to have at least 36 semesters or 54 quarter hours towards a doctoral program in science, technology, engineering, or math. Okay, you don't have that. You still got 2 more chances. You have needed to completed a doctoral in medicine, osteopathic medicine, or some type of medical degree. We still got 1 more chance, James.
This is the one.
This is the one that's going to nail it. The completion of a nationally recognized test pilot school program.
Dang it.
So close, James.
I mean, I'm almost wrapping up my test pilot and
Like
medical
literally.
degree, so I'll be there
My
soon.
guess is you probably had your house on the market. You were
I
getting
did.
ready to move
Yep.
to wherever NASA works from. Cape Charles, not Cape Charles.
We'll go to, I was going to move to Cape Charles.
Cape
That was the
Charles.
problem.
Oh,
uh,
they must
yeah.
also possess other, I'll say, soft skills.
Soft skills.
They need to be
Yes.
leaders. They
Done.
need to see, they need to be very good communicators, James.
Eh,
Eh. You just
ish.
went and said the word ish. Clearly, you don't communicate well.
Strike
And
two.
you need to be very good with teamwork. So even the
Yeah.
soft skills, you're a little
Yeah. Iffy at
on.
best. Yeah, there are some physical skills
Yeah,
or
the
traits
physical
that you
stuff.
need as well.
Yep.
So 2020 vision, as you can see, I have glasses on, so not
It can
going
be
to hit
correct. It can
that
be
one.
corrected though, or
Oh, with corrective
yeah.
lenses, you're right.
Yep.
So I would be okay. Blood pressure not more than 140 over 90 in a sitting position.
Mm.
Work hasn't been going well, Luke. So I don't know if it's
My
working
BP's
out there.
great. So
Oh, is
far I
it?
meet the
Good.
physical.
And the height is between 62 and 75 inches. So we qualify there, which is nice. I barely make that 52 inches. Not really. I'm good. 75. What's that?
Like
6
9 foot.
foot,
Something
6 foot
like
3. That's really pretty limiting. 6'3" is not that tall.
No, and like
I mean,
when I think
compared to
of
me, it is.
yeah, and
But
when I think of like astronauts, I think of like pilots, like big, tall, strapping, men
right?
and women who are like, that's what I think of when I think of astronauts. I don't think of like little shrimps like me and you.
Yeah,
So
I guess we're wrong once again.
yeah, a couple other physical requirements. So number one, there's multiple application processes. They said back in 2017 they had like 3,600 applicants.
No, you dirty liar.
What was the number? Okay.
18,300
Okay,
applicants.
maybe I was the narrow down, but this ultimately, so they ultimately narrow this down. There's multiple interview processes.
Yes, there
And
are.
then when you do finally, like, okay, you're still almost in, there's still some more stuff to do. So there is a 2-year basic training program in which you are considered an astronaut candidate. So you could still get kicked out of this program if you like smoke weed or like do something bad, whatever
Strike
it happens to
7.
be. Yeah. So during this time, you will become a qualified scuba diver because they do a boatload of training in pools to simulate,
why not?
weightlessness. You will take military water survival training. So think of like the things that like Navy SEALs might do. You have to undergo a swimming test. I might fail that because I'm a really bad swimmer.
Are you?
Yeah, I don't know how to do the freestyle. Like I can't keep my face
Do you
underwater
just
and do the
doggy
breathing
paddle
part.
everywhere you
No,
go?
I just keep my head above the water and I do it. So you do have to undergo high and low atmospheric pressure testing to see how your body reacts to it.
Sure.
You have to do multiple flights on what they call the vomit comet. And I always thought the vomit comet was a thing that spins. That's different.
It's not one of those things at like the carnival, like the
No,
carny
no,
folk bring around.
that's different. That's just a G-force simulator, and the G's aren't as terrible as I thought they were. The vomit comet, this is fun, is when they take you up in a big, huge Boeing 777, and they basically descend and rise and descend, and during the descents you experience momentary weightlessness because it's nose diving essentially. So the vomit comet, where's my details on the vomit comet? The vomit comet,
I don't want you to say that anymore.
It's 2 hours
Oh,
of plunging arcs in which you're weightless for approximately 20 to 25 second intervals. It simulates that weightlessness. Fun fact, all the actors, Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, Bill Paxton, they all did this for the filming of Apollo 13. And if you're doing that and you're interested in doing a vomit comet, there's a company called Zero G Corp that allows tourists to do vomit comets, and tickets are $5,000 a piece.
there you go. Must be some podcast host doing that.
I'm telling you. And then finally, I don't know why this one was listed there specifically. You are instructed in media and Russian language training. I'm not sure why Russian. I'm assuming they're obviously our biggest competitors
there's so many
in the space
cosmonauts
race
out there too. I think with the space station
International
and things
Space
like
Station.
that. Yeah, makes sense. Wow, that's a lot, Luke. I think we've talked 10 minutes and there are at least 13 strikes against me to becoming an astronaut. So, with that, I think it's time we take a break for a word from our sponsor. NASA, but it's spelled wrong. So it must be a different group.
I think it's illegal for us to say that, so NASA is not sponsoring us.
I apologize, NASA. Thanks for not sponsoring us. We do have some shout outs, though.
Who do we got?
Justin G says,
not an astronaut.
He might be soon, though. I'm a mechanical engineer, so he has that qualification.
He got the first degree.
Mechanical engineering student, so he doesn't have his 2 years yet. At Portland State University. About 3 months ago, I was in search of some good podcasts related to my studies, and when I found yours, my search was over. Thank you, Justin.
Of course.
I started listening from the very beginning, and I'm up to episode 77. I was wondering if you guys could do an episode catering to students in the field. Something I search often is good study habits, and I think it would be awesome if you guys did an episode on good study habits for engineering. Clearly, Justin does not know much about your past study habits, Luke.
Academic prowess.
I like the idea, and I like the theory behind this. I don't know if we are the best people to be
We might have to have a
this,
guest
though.
speaker, like someone else come on to talk
That's
about
a good
it.
idea. Only because it's been so long since we've been in college. Otherwise, for sure, we'd be able to do this.
I'd be Johnny on the spot
Yeah.
if I was back in my studying days.
Absolutely. Second shout out here, John L. I have started listening to your podcast via iHeartRadio, which I forgot we were on. So thanks for that, John, on my commute every day. Currently at episode 139. I'm a manufacturing engineer who studied at the University of Wisconsin Stout.
Nice. Wisconsin Stout?
We've had a few people write in from Wisconsin Stout, and he made sure to clarify that they are the Blue Devils.
Not the Mud Ducks.
Not the Mud Ducks. In my current position, I am a senior manufacturing engineer, and I work in the medical industry, and I think a great topic for an episode would be clean rooms. That's an interesting one. Put that one on the list. I have had to research operation and maintenance for my job, and it might be interesting for other, quote, engineering types. I agree, John. I think other engineering types would be interested in that. I've always thought clean rooms were very interesting, like working with Intel and folks like that, where like the lengths that they go to, it's just super crazy to me. But yeah, very interesting. So thank you both for writing in and saying such nice things and listening, all that support, all those good things. If any of you want to write in and say hello, if you want to request some stickers, which maybe I'll send, I don't know, if you want to tell us what episodes we should be doing, or if you want to tell Luke that he still has hopes to be an astronaut, go ahead and email us at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com.
And don't forget to subscribe, like, share. We love the reviews. And as always, you can visit the Unprofessional Engineering store to get your own merch. And you can yell at your smart devices to play the Unprofessional Engineering podcast anytime.
I've heard, Luke, that it will soon be a requirement for all astronauts to own an Unprofessional Engineering t-shirt. So
I heard that too. So, hey, get them while they last. Get them while they last.
That's right. Something that I wanted to touch back on is those 18,300 applicants. So that happened back in 2016, 2017. NASA doesn't accept classes of astronauts all the time. They say generally it's like in every 4-ish years.
2017 was the last class, I believe.
Right. And so that's great. The board invites like a small group of the most highly qualified candidates for interviews at NASA's Johnson Space Center down in Houston, not the Charles Center. Was that what it was? The Space Center in Houston. Of those interviewed, about half are invited back for second interviews. And then from that group, NASA's new astronaut candidates are selected. Fun fact, Luke, of those 18,300 applicants, 11 were selected and graduated.
That's crazy.
Not great odds.
I have a fun game we can play later. It's the current astronauts.
That
we're going to talk about, because there's a current group of, it's a really small group. It's pretty exclusive, like active astronauts that could go to space tomorrow. If Ben Affleck and them needed someone to drill a hole in a comet, we have astronauts that could do that.
Comet hole drillers. Yeah, that's good. I wanted to talk about what astronauts learn in training. I know you touched on this, but there were a few more things I wanted to mention. Is that okay?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So, first off, and probably most important, like of all the things we talk about in this episode, is that the astronauts in training are referred to as ASCANs. So, astronaut candidates, like you mentioned,
not swearing.
ASCANs. Yes, so that's interesting. So good job for that unfortunate name. So again, the training takes place at the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. And as an ASCAN, you can learn a number of different skills in the training program, including piloting, using NASA's fleet of T-38 supersonic jet crafts, spacewalking, or which I mean that seems important, right? Or what is officially known as extravehicular activity, EVA. They practice for this in the training facility in a 45-foot deep swimming pool called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. There's also the KC-135 aircraft known as the Vomit Comet that you've talked about and made me nauseous with. Oh man, that would be bad. Flight operations and safety aboard the ISS and Soyuz spacecraft, and this is done using life-size mock-ups, and increasingly more virtual reality is used as well, which is interesting. Science behind the experiments they will be conducting, so they aren't just pressing buttons, they actually know what they're doing while they're up there. Survival and leadership you talked about, first aid and rudimentary medical care you talked about, and then cultural sensitivity training for working with teams from around the world. So that's an important
because they're up at the space station with people from all over the world. It's not just a bunch of Americans up there.
Not just Americans. Even if it is just Americans, they still probably need some cultural sensitivity training. So good to know. Where do you want to go next, Luke?
So the next one, I want to talk about that T-38 for a second.
Sure.
So a part of, again, this is all a part of like the mandatory stuff that they do during training and they do as current astronauts. They have to maintain a number of flight hours so that they can stay, qualified, I'll say. And I have to assume that this is for the pilots. I can't imagine like everybody gets to fly a jet. Like if some doctor is on there that's like a neurologist and he's doing experiments in space. I don't want him flying a jet. Just saying.
But what if something bad happens to the pilot people and now you're stuck up there without flight skills?
It wasn't specific, so maybe they all have to learn how to fly potentially. Because like I said, I can't imagine that like because a lot of these are civilian, like engineers and scientists. But like, what if you have a scientist and they don't have a background in aviation at all, and all of a sudden you're going to teach them to fly a plane?
I guess they don't get selected.
Maybe. So pretty cool. The Northrop T-38 Talon, as it's called, is a two-seater twin-jet supersonic jet trainer. It's a jet trainer and was the world's first and most produced supersonic trainer. It's still in service. So the United States Air Force operates these and for their training programs. And then NASA is also the primary user of the T-38 Talon. It has a top speed of 858 miles per hour. It has a range of about 1,000, pretty short wingspan, about 25 feet. It has a cruising speed of 350 miles per hour. And these things cost around $750,000. So
it's not bad.
It's pretty inexpensive. I mean, if you and I pooled our money, we could maybe get one, but it's a trainer.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's just
there's no weapons. There's no, it's basically just for
why would we bother
skills. Then? Yeah, if I can't shoot stuff.
Imagine if we wrapped that in unprofessional engineering stuff, though. We for sure would get at least one more listener.
Heck yeah!
Wow.
So I just thought that was interesting because I love planes.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So there's a few more things that I wanted to touch on, but before I do that, Luke, let's take a break for this week's Luke's Rant.
So Luke's Rant is going to turn more into story time.
So will you get me some cookies and milk?
No, I won't. So like most kids my age, I am in the 40-ish range.
It's your age, yes.
Ish. I grew up, I always wanted to be an astronaut. Like I was like,
You're
I
north
did.
of the middle point of 40s,
I
aren't
am
you?
north of the middle
Oof.
point of
Oof.
40.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Hmm.
And I always wanted to be an astronaut. Like I was telling James, like I would put like boxes on my head and like cut holes in them and pretend it was a helmet. And I dressed up as an astronaut for Halloween, and that's just what I wanted to do. I mean, it was just a super cool thing. And when I was in school, there was this program where they were sending a teacher, Christy McCullough, I think was her name, and she was the first school teacher ever. There was a big, huge program to get a teacher in space, and she was going to teach from space and do all this cool stuff. She talked to our school one time because I guess before she went up, before she was planned to go up, she was doing a tour of
And she talked
schools
to your
to build
school?
some. I think so.
In your head, she did. Okay.
Maybe it could have been a recording that they played or something. I don't remember the specifics, but I remember going to the gym and she was talking to us. And I so wanted to be an astronaut. And then whatever date, I was just looking at it. So the Challenger disaster occurred on January 28th, 1986. So I was like 11 years old. I was probably late grade school, early middle school. We were all in the gymnasium waiting to watch the Challenger go off on the TVs. Like the whole school was there. And the thing blows up in front of all these kids. And the teachers don't know what to do. And they're like shutting
They don't
the
train
TV.
you for that.
No,
Yeah.
they're like shutting the TVs off. And they're like, oh, something happened. And like they had no idea what to say. And I just remember very quickly, I was like, they can blow up?
Yeah.
Like, I thought this was like a given. You just go and you're good. So I quickly decided I did not want to be an astronaut and blow up trying to go to space.
Yeah, I think that was a good choice, Luke.
But hindsight, I met zero of the qualifications. So even if I wanted to be an astronaut, I couldn't be. So probably
This let you down more easily.
yeah, the fact that that dream was crushed, probably not a bad thing because I wasn't going anyways. So
Anyone watching the video, I'm really not smiling and laughing at the
Yes,
story, which is very sad. I'm laughing at my cat licking her butt behind
yeah,
me.
I was just thinking
As
about
you're
the cat.
telling
I
this.
see it over your shoulder. Maybe
I
just
can
like
move.
lean a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's really sad. But for those who haven't, check out our episode on the Challenger disaster. We met with the creator, producer, director, everythinger of a movie called The Challenger Disaster with Superman in it, Dean
Yeah,
Cain,
Dean Cain
and Les Miles. So
It was an interesting movie. It was one
Yeah.
of those kind of B movies. It wasn't obviously
Yeah, I liked
something
it.
that like came out of Hollywood. It wasn't bad. It was like an
it taught me
engineering
a lot
look
about
at
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it, I think. Okay, so moving on, I have some tips from close personal friend Chris Hadfield, astronaut to the stars.
Chris, good old Chris.
Chris Hadfield, yeah. Fun fact, he has a master class if you're on the whole masterclass.com thingy. So just take that, and I'm sure you're going to become an astronaut in no
Yeah.
time.
Minus all the other qualifications, but yeah.
Right, those things. So he's a Canadian astronaut, Colonel Chris Hadfield, once referred to as, quote, the most famous astronaut since Neil Armstrong.
I've never heard of him before you said
I
his
know,
name.
that's what I said too. First went to space in 1995 aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis. And
I just realized he's the guy with the mustache.
he is the guy with
I
the
do know who
mustache.
he is then.
Yeah.
Okay, I do know him.
And in 2013, he went viral with a video of David Bowie's Space Oddity, recorded while he commanded the International Space Station. I think it's funny that we have Neil Armstrong, who, is walking on the moon, and then the next most famous guy made like a TikTok video.
And has a killer mustache.
He does have a killer mustache. Okay, so Hatfield trained with the Canadian Space Agency before NASA selected him to be a mission specialist in 92. Here are some tips that he gave for astronauts or people who want to become astronauts. Number one, he says, forget the movies. Hadfield says that the astronaut personality we often see portrayed in movies is like really over dramatized, which shouldn't be surprising. And the type of person who is actually trusted to go into space would not act in these ways. Astronauts need to have cool heads and be able to calmly execute really difficult tasks in really stressful situations. Okay. You're an ASCAN now. Get used to it. Sorry about the unfortunate naming. Also, just because you're an ASCAN doesn't necessarily mean you're an astronaut that's going up into space. So sorry about your luck there as well. Become an expert in everything. Astronauts need to know everything about everything that happens on board the spaceship because, as he says it, when you're in space, often there's no one else to ask. ASCANs study for 2 years before they even qualify as rookie astronauts. They cover everything from how rockets work to weather patterns, geology, electronics repairs, medical procedures, all of these things. The International Space Station is really, really complicated. So astronauts on board really need to be able to fix anything. And that's just really kind of tough. This also makes me think, Luke, that maybe they do all need to know how to be like fighter jet pilots,
Yeah,
you know?
maybe you're right.
Trained to survive emergency landings on Earth, which terrifies me. This sounds awful. So, survival training turns out to be necessary as part of an astronaut's prep. So, in an emergency, your spaceship may have to undock from the International Space Station quickly, and thus you could end up landing anywhere on Earth. So, hopefully, you're landing.
Water.
Yeah, hopefully, you're hitting that big old, spot of water covering most of the planet. But you never know. Since roughly 70% of our planet is water, though, you must learn how to use all the safety equipment in the event of a splashdown. They also need to figure out how to survive if they land in a desert or in the frozen wastelands on the poles, things like that. Learn leadership techniques for survival, which we've talked about, and see the body as a system. And that what I thought was weird, but astronauts must also develop expertise in the human body and how it works in order to properly conduct medical experiments and to be ready to handle health emergencies, but also to understand what your body's undergoing as you're
you need to know
getting into space, and then how it's going to react and perform months into your trips to the International Space Station. So things like that, very interesting. So thank you, good close personal friend Chris Hadfield.
Okay, I got a list of firsts and fun facts I'm going to just jam through, and then I got a little game, and if you have anything else. So first, the first person in space was Yuri Alexei something Gargan. He was a...
That's not the dog.
No. This was a Russian, April 12th, 1961. The first American was Alan B. Shepard on May 5th, 1961. We missed it by like a month.
Really close.
Yeah. On June 16th, 1963, the Soviet cosmonaut Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman to travel to space. It took the U.S. Quite a bit longer. The first.
Did you say 1963?
1963, the first female cosmonaut. Very progressive for Russia. So Sally K. Ride, she became the first American woman to go to space. It took us until 1983. They selected 6 women to be the first group of astronauts. They all ended up going to space, but she was the first one. And the first African-American, Guy Bluford, was a mission specialist aboard a Space Shuttle Challenger in 1983.
There you go.
Huh?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay,
you
fun
said you
facts.
have a game or fun facts?
Yeah, I'm going to do some fun facts real quick.
Okay.
As of 2018, because we haven't done a lot of space stuff since then, 37 countries have traveled to space. 553 different people have orbited the Earth.
Does that include Michael Strahan? No?
This is 2018. I couldn't find an earlier date.
Oh, okay.
According to NASA, civilian astronauts make anywhere from $104,000 to $161,000 a year. Not bad.
I mean,
it's not great. I mean, you're going to space and risking your life. And,
I mean, I'm good with that, but like, yeah, what you have to go through, the experience you have to, oh man, I don't think it's worth it.
So then I went to the Google machine and I just typed in criminal astronaut to see that what would come up. It was for my fun facts section, and I totally forgot about this. February 2007, U.S. astronaut Lisa Nowak drove from Houston, Texas to Orlando, Florida, wearing a diaper the whole way so she wouldn't have to stop for bathroom breaks, because her astronaut boyfriend was having relations with another woman, and she went there to confront the woman and, like, I guess beat her up. I'm not sure what happened, but she got arrested. It was a disaster, and it was just a big funny thing that she wore. Going to
whack this other woman
with the dirty diaper.
Whack.
I'm assuming.
That's gross.
Okay. So there are 43 current astronauts, James.
Hold on, real quick before we play the game.
Shoot.
if you aren't going to make it as an astronaut, such as myself, there's
Oh,
still other opportunities to
oh
help
yeah, yeah.
NASA. In
Heck yeah.
2019, there were over 66,000 people that worked as aerospace engineers, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And these people create spacecrafts, aircrafts, missiles, things like that. There's also atmospheric scientists who work in the space areas by studying atmospheric pressure. There were about 10,000 folks employed in this way back in 2019. Astronomy is also important. There were about 20,000, a little over that, people currently working as astronomers in the space field. So all of these things are options that you could do to help with, supporting the space program if you're not going to be an astronaut.
And also, 18,000 people work for NASA. You could just go work for NASA.
Piece of cake.
I didn't realize it was that big of an organization.
Yeah, I see JPL always advertising on the LinkedIn. So never hire me. But
here's the game. And so this is kind of like looking at social media and popularity versus astronauts, and give you a sense of like where the popularity is of social media. So first of all, there are 43 current American astronauts that are active duty, meaning they could go save the planet tomorrow by going to space and drilling a hole in a...
Like Men in Black style.
Yeah, so there's 43 of them. How many of them, James, have a Facebook account?
22.
10.
10. Okay.
How many of them have an Instagram account?
17.
22.
Oh, that was my first guess. I got my numbers mixed up.
How many of them have a Twitter account?
30.
34. Look at you.
Oh, not bad.
Yeah. So of the 34, of the 43, rather, Twitter is the most popular social media, then Instagram, then Facebook. And then this is the one that I was most interested in. How many of them have no social media at all?
It sounds like 12.
6.
Yeah.
So some of them have multiple accounts. I just thought it was interesting. Like, it's clearly like when you go and pick on their profiles, like you can clearly see that like all the ones that have Facebook, they're like our age.
Yeah.
And then like the ones that have no Facebook are a little bit older than us. The ones that have Instagram and Twitter are like a little younger than us. So it's a very interesting way to slice. Like,
that's funny.
So
I love it.
And lastly,
I thought you were going to compare how popular they are versus like celebrities.
No, not at all. So lastly, who has more astronauts, New York or California?
California?
All time.
Oh, I mean, like they lived there or grew up there, you mean?
Yeah, that's where they're
born
from.
There?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say New York then. This feels like a trick question.
New York has 29. California has 27. Texas comes in at 22. Ohio, 21.
That's where the Wright brothers are. Don't they have some sort of flight stuff going on there?
And then the one that I thought was interesting, they broke it down to cities. Guess how many Pittsburgh has? Actual astronauts.
I'm guessing they count Carnegie Mellon, so I'm going to go with 3.
It is 3.
Is it?
There's
3
I
know
that
them
have
all.
Pittsburgh listed as their city of residence.
They're all my boys and girls. Yeah.
That's all I had.
That's excellent. That was a good fun fact. I liked that one. I don't really have much good in the fun fact category. The oldest, I guess this is good. Oldest astronaut to fly on a space shuttle was John Glenn when he was 77. You remember when that happened?
I do remember
98?
That.
Yeah, that was kind of a big deal.
It was a publicity stunt.
Yeah, it was. And the youngest that I saw was Sally Ride, 32, back in 83. So pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, is that it?
That's all I got.
Man, I feel like we are set to, well, not personally become astronauts, but I think we've encouraged and influenced others to become one of the next 11 that is selected. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think the challenge, like even if you and I came together like Voltron and took all of our accomplishments, the two of us still could not become one astronaut.
At least if the two of us came together to become one, we'd still be short enough to qualify.
Yes,
so that's
we would.
Good.
We would.
Awesome. Well, hopefully you all enjoyed this breakdown on how to become an astronaut. If you have any information or experience with flying into space, maybe you're Michael Strahan.
If you are an astronaut.
If you are an astronaut, actually, someone just asked if we wanted the youngest astronaut trainer to be a guest on our show. That's always so much work, but maybe. Anyways, if any of you want to talk to me want to talk about anything like that, why don't you just email me at unprofessionalengineering@gmail.com. And until next time.
See ya.